he told Alice. Eventually, the weather broke. His guide located a buffalo, a feat the nearsighted Roosevelt could never have managed on his own. Roosevelt skirted downwind of the beast, which was even more myopic than he was, and crawled close enough to get a shot. He fired once, then twice more. The buffalo took off running. Roosevelt thought he might have missed entirely, but he and the guide gave chase, and after crossing a ridge, they discovered the buffalo lying dead on its side. Roosevelt whooped for joy and did a victory dance. He pulled out $100 bill and gave the guide a bonus. The experience persuaded Roosevelt to plant a flag in the West. His difficulty finding a buffalo drove home the fact that the West was changing. The indigenous bovines were being replaced by introduced ones, cattle. Roosevelt scouted the opportunities for investment in the cattle industry, and before he left Dakota, he designated 2 locals as his agents, with instructions to buy him a cattle ranch. Believing Westerners more honest than the swindlers he knew in the East, where his political enemies included the grafters of New York's Tammany Hall, Roosevelt wrote a check for $14,000 and accepted no security beyond a handshake. He got his ranch and became a cattleman. He struggled to master the arts of the cowboy. To Roosevelt, as to many of his generation in America, the cowboy was the embodiment of the West and of its spirit of rugged individualism. If Roosevelt could prove himself as hardy, as resourceful, as brave and strong as the cowboys who rode the Dakota Range, he would have become the man he longed to be. He made an odd figure for a cowboy. His laconic neighbors chuckled at the bully and delighted that burst from his mouth. His thick eyeglasses earned him the inevitable moniker Four Eyes, which alternated with the Dude. But his determination and stamina eventually won him the respect of his new comrades. He learned to ride like a cowboy, rope like a cowboy, herd cattle like a cowboy, stand up to thieves and other bad men like a cowboy. He poured his inheritance into his Dakota ranch, and following the untimely death of his wife, he poured his heart into it. Alice had been his only true love, and he was devastated by her loss. He sought refuge on the ranch and in the solitude of the Badlands. He fell under the spell of the West. "I have been 3 weeks on the roundup and have worked as hard as any of the cowboys," he wrote from the range to an Eastern friend. "But I have enjoyed it greatly. Yesterday I was 18 hours in the saddle, from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m., having a half hour each for dinner and tea. I can now do cowboy work pretty well." He dreamed of becoming a cattle baron, a Western equivalent of the business tycoons of the East. Many others had made fortunes in the West. Why couldn't he? He learned soon enough. Winters in Dakota had been deceptively mild during the brief time since whites had begun settling there. The winter of 1886 to 1887 reverted to the mean, and then some. Rainfall had been scanter than usual that summer, and it didn't pick up in the fall. The cattle became thin, rather than packing on the weight needed to carry them through the winter, and winter came early. A typical winter on the plains featured brief storms that dropped a few to several inches of dry snow on the ground and then abated. The air might be cold, but the snow wasn't too deep for the cattle to paw aside, bearing the cured grass beneath. This winter was different. The first storm came in November as a full-bore blizzard. It caught the cattle not only thin from the summer, but lacking their winter coats. It dropped drifts of snow that defied the efforts of the hungry animals to dig through it. Where they did manage to penetrate to the bottom of the drifts, there wasn't any grass, due to the summer's drought. This first storm was followed by another and another. Temperatures plummeted far below zero. The cowboys, who normally thought nothing of risking their lives for the cattle, couldn't leave